Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, you know the drill. I'm a retired New York City police detective, and if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. And today, I want to talk to you about the Lori Vallow trial update. This is a case that has been dragging out for over 3 years. Lori Shallow Vallow, as I like to refer to her as, stands charged with the murder of JJ and Tylee Ryan, her children. And there is a ton of other people who have become dead that have gone against her, like her ex-husband, Charles Vallow, her own brother, Alex, who was doing a lot of the dirty work and killing off a lot of people. Tammy Daybell, that's Chad Daybell's wife. The list goes on and on. And this cult mom, this evil monster, tried to play games with the courts by pleading insanity or trying to fake that she's cuckoo. And under Idaho state law, you can't get away with that. So there's a lot of things that she did to delay this thing. But I wanted to talk to you about the grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock. I'm so upset over the ruling, but I understand how the law works, and I know how the courts go with as far as someone that's going to be a witness and is going to testify. It's a really tough thing to sidestep. But my heart and my soul breaks for those two, the grandparents, who have been so vocal and were the ones who made the phone call to 911 to say, hey, something's up here. And you know, by a show of hands here in the chat, how many of you guys have been following this case? If you've been following this from the beginning, put a 1 in the chat. If you really don't know much about it, I'm about to give you guys a timeline from the very beginning all the way to current day. But before I play that, I want to just say that Nate Eaton from East Idaho News has been covering this case. He was the reporter who he employed a helicopter team to hover over Chad Daybell's property when they were digging up where the two children were buried, JJ and Tylee. He also hopped on an airplane and went to Hawaii and chased these two dirtbags down. So kudos to Nate Eaton on all of his reporting. But you know, Lori Shallow Vallow was at one point, you know, from what we'll see here in the reporting, somewhat of a normal mom. And after getting involved in readings of books and so forth of Chad Daybell, she became radicalized with religion. And, you know, things that transpired after she started listening to his podcasts and getting involved with Chad Daybell, I really feel like, you know, obviously he's as demonic as she is, but I feel like the two of them together, they were a killing machine. And that's not even a joke. I'm not saying that as to be funny. They were plowing and killing everybody and anybody who was in their way and who didn't agree with their radicalized thinking, their you know, thought train. So let's take a listen to to Nate Eaton talking about Lori and Chad. Well, mainly talking about Lori, but he talks about the judge's ruling. Judge Robert Boyce made a ruling that both grandparents couldn't be in the courtroom, but today he said that the grandparents and certain other family members can be in the courtroom, but he excluded Larry, the grandfather, because of certain issues. And let's take a listen to what Nate has to say here, because it's pretty interesting. And it was a live stream that he did this morning. I think you guys will all get a little bit of something out of this. And if you've seen this already, I'm not going to play it all, but I'm going to play most of it. He goes over the rulings and so forth. So just hang in there with me, because right after this, I have a full timeline from the beginning to the end. Just by show of hands in the chat, I always like to get the feel and the vibe of how everybody feels. Who would like to see a beginning to end timeline? I tried to pick out the best one that I could find, but this news reporting station gave a beginning to end timeline, and they also talked about all of the people who were killed along the way in the path of these two demons. But let me know in the chat by putting a 1 if you want to see that. Press a 2 if you're not really interested. Let's just see. I always like to see what the chat likes. But let's take a listen, and I'll watch the chat as we play Nate Eaton. He's a good man.
Good morning. We have some breaking news coming to you today from Boise. Let me just raise this microphone. As far as the ruling in whether the Woodcocks can attend the trial for Lori Vallow Daybell, and the ruling just came down. To give you a summary, the judge has ruled that Kay Woodcock, Summer Shiflett, and Colby Ryan are defined as victims. So they can attend the court hearing, the trial for Lori Vallow Daybell. But there is no mention of Larry Woodcock in this ruling. So it is unclear. It sounds like he cannot attend because he is a witness. Now, if the prosecution decides to remove him from the witness list, he could attend, or the prosecution could call him first to the witness list and have him on the stand first. That is an option. I'm just speculating here, and then he could stay in there. But let me go through this ruling. It just came down 3 minutes ago. I'm going to pull it up here so you can read it. It's 9 pages. This is, of course, the whole issue was raised last week at a hearing when the attorneys for Lori Vallow Daybell said that Larry and Kay should not be considered victims, because victims in the case, according to Idaho law and according to her attorneys, are immediate family members, and also because they're witnesses in the case. So in most court,
hey, I want to just point out a comment here. I just want to stop this for a second. So Boo Sheet, thank you for that comment. She says, DutyRon, do you think what Larry said about the judge has anything to do with this decision? And he basically, what she's alluding to there is Larry Woodcock said, I'm not going to acknowledge him as a judge anymore. He kind of went on a couple of news shows and said that he lost all respect for him and he's not going to call him a judge anymore. I would say absolutely no, absolutely not, that this has anything to do with it. The judge is applying the law and is applying what is under the Idaho statute. So let's listen in. So my answer to that is no.
Cases, if you're a witness, you cannot sit in the court trial. You cannot sit in all of the proceedings because you'll hear other people testifying and see evidence. So Lori's attorneys were trying to exclude Larry and Kay from being in the courtroom because they said that they are witnesses. Well, the prosecution said they are victims. They are victims, and because of that, they can't be in there. Now, Larry and Kay are divorced, and because of that, this ruling from Judge Boyce says Larry is not JJ's biological grandfather. In so many words, I'm simplifying this. I want to take you here to the ruling. I'm going to make this big. You can read it here. We just got it. As I said, let me get rid of this. There we go. Okay. So let's go through this. On March 30th, the court entered an order excluding witnesses. As is customary, the order prohibits witnesses from hearing other witnesses' testimony. The issue of determining who may be exempt from the order was raised, and pursuant to the court's request, briefing from the parties was submitted to clarify certain family relationships to the victims in this case. Upon receipt of the briefs from the state of Idaho and defendant Lori Vallow Daybell, and after consideration, a review of the record, and controlling legal authority, the court renders the following decision and order. So then we go into the background about the deaths of JJ and Tylee and Tammy. And then we go into the, we have the court talking about security and planning. And then what do we have here? Okay. In response, the state raised a concern about certain witnesses being excluded from observing testimony. Specifically, the state raised concerns about excluding Kay Woodcock, Larry Woodcock, and Summer Shiflett from hearing witness testimony at trial before they offer their own testimony. The state insisted that these individuals qualify as victims, or alternatively, as the immediate family members of some of the victims. Defendant Lori Daybell argues they do not meet the definition of a victim under Idaho law. The court has now reviewed and briefly the briefing and submitted and considered the record. The following facts are relevant to the decision. 1, defendant Lori Daybell legally adopted the victim, J.J. Vallow. J.J. Vallow's adoptive father, Leland Charles Anthony Vallow, is deceased, Charles Vallow. 2, Kay Woodcock is the biological sister to Charles Vallow, the adoptive father of the victim. Lori Daybell is the biological mother to Tylee Ryan. Summer Shiflett is the biological sister to Lori Daybell. Colby Ryan is the biological half-brother to Tylee Ryan and the adoptive half-brother to J.J. Vallow. Defendant Lori Daybell has no relationship to Tamara Daybell. Okay, and now we're going to go into the legal authority, that the law, basically. At the party's request, the court may order witnesses excluded so they cannot hear other witnesses' testimony. Or the court may do so on its own, but the rule does not authorize excluding a crime victim. So the law says you can exclude witnesses, but you can't exclude witnesses who are victims. And then the question becomes who are the victims, who are considered the victims. So we have the rights of crime victims, and then it lays out what a victim is. Immediate family members of homicide victims. This court may designate a representative from the immediate family to exercise these rights on behalf of a deceased, incapacitated, or minor victim. The Supreme Court has clarified who qualifies as an immediate family member of homicide victim. We're going to post this whole thing, by the way. It's actually, I put a link on my Facebook page if you want to go through and read it. Here's what the court defines immediate family members as: parent, mother-in-law, father-in-law, husband, wife, sister, brother, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, or a son and a daughter. Thus, the court held that in a homicide case, victim impact statements by those who are not immediate family members of the victim are inadmissible. That's citing a prior case.
Hey, I just want to say this too. So the court goes by what's legal, and whether the Woodcocks are legally married or not, I don't know. I don't think any of us know, but I think that the court has access to those public records. You'd have to apply for a marriage license and so forth. We all know how that goes. This is something that is, I'm sure that they didn't want this to be put out there, but unfortunately it's out there. Also too, people are alluding to, okay, well, the state is just going to go and take Larry Woodcock and put him as the first witness. It doesn't work that way. They're not going to do that. Because they have to have structure to how they present this to the jury. And the prosecutor is not going to just modify the way they're going to present this case. So I would be very surprised to see if the prosecution says, you know what, Larry Woodcock's testimony is, not that important. We'll just put him on first and we'll just present the case in a different way. But the good news is that Larry Woodcock and Kay, they made that 911 call. So it has to be early on in the process of how these kids were reported that there was something going on. So they might be pretty high on the witness list. He might not be first, but he may be up there close. So let me know what you think about that in the comments. Let me know your thoughts.
So here we go. This is how the court reached his decision. This is legalese, and I appreciate you sticking through with this. Let me, again, break it down for you. If you're just joining in, Judge Boyce has ruled that Kay Woodcock can attend the trial and be in there and listen to other witnesses and hear evidence, and so can Summer Shiflett, Lori Vallow's sister, and so can Colby Ryan, Lori Vallow's son. He did not say if Larry Woodcock could be in there.
Right. So here's the argument, and Sleuthy just brought that up, and many others I've seen online bring up this argument, is what about all these other witnesses that he just rambled off, Kay and the other two? They can hear the testimony from the other witnesses and tell Larry. But then again, anybody that's in the courtroom can tell Larry, but they're sworn not to be able to not to tell what they heard, especially if they're going to be aiding in the prosecution. If you want to help the prosecution, why would you do something like that to hurt the case? So it's like a catch-22. If they're going to be giving testimony and they're going to be helping the state's case to help bring justice and prosecute Lori Vallow, then I would say it's not in their best interest to go and do that. But be that as it may, there's many different possibilities here. We can argue and hypothesize and theorize about what ifs and what if this happens, what if that happens. The judge is just going to go by, he's going to apply the law to his ruling, and that's it.
Does that mean Larry Woodcock can't attend the trial? Well, if they call Larry Woodcock very first and get his testimony out of the way, he can sit through the rest of the trial. If they decide not to call him, he can go. But as it stands today, according to this ruling, he can't go in there and witness the trial, witness the testimony and the evidence until he's called, and then he can sit through there. Okay, man. So back to the brief here. The court notes there's a procedure. The court must determine who is a victim under Idaho law in order to ensure compliance with the exclusionary rule. To be clear, family members of crime victims are always permitted to attend criminal proceedings, including the trial in this case. The exclusionary rule is limited to prohibiting a testifying witness from hearing another witness testify, and thus the exclusion only occurs when testimony is elicited at trial. So if no one's on the stand, this is saying that anyone can go, any of the family members. It's just if somebody's on the stand. The court in no way minimizes the significant impact of losing family members to homicide, no matter the nature or closeness of any kinship. Further, the court has never attempted to preclude any family members from attending criminal proceedings, as evidenced by their frequent appearances in court during the pretrial litigation. However, previous attendance does not justify future inclusion for the purpose of determining whether or not a person meets the legal definition of victim in Idaho. That is strictly a legal determination the court must make. Simply put, only legally qualified victims may observe trial testimony before offering their own testimony. If a witness is not a legally qualified victim, their testimony will likely be prohibited if they first observe other testimony. Thus, it is incumbent upon this court to ascertain who meets the legal definition of victim and immediate family members of homicide victims in Idaho. The states argued that Larry, Kay, Colby, and Summer are qualified victims. The defense disagrees. And certainly the court does not question the emotional impact of the alleged victims on any of these people put forth. For applying purposes, the court cannot find that Kay Woodcock initially qualifies as a victim. However, because a homicide victim cannot assert rights for themselves, meaning JJ or Tylee or Tammy, the rights extend to immediate family members. In Idaho, Kay Woodcock does not meet the legal definition of immediate family members of any of the victims, but Charles Vallow does. As a parent of JJ Vallow, Charles Vallow is an immediate family member who is afforded the same rights conferred upon crime victims. The record reflects that Charles Vallow is deceased. Kay Woodcock is the biological sister to Charles Vallow. Accordingly, the court has authority to designate a representative from the immediate family member to exercise these rights on behalf of the deceased when a member of the immediate family is not able to fulfill that role. Okay, that's interesting. So, in the interest of justice, the court finds it wholly appropriate to designate Kay Woodcock the representative for JJ Vallow in Charles Vallow's stead. As such, she qualifies to be accepted and may observe trial testimony. So they're saying because her brother died, she can be Charles' representative and act on behalf of him for JJ. Interesting legal argument there. So she's acting as JJ's father's behalf to get in the courtroom. That's how the judge is explaining that. Wow. Okay. Summer Shiflett, she doesn't meet the legal definition of immediate family member, but the record clarifies she's the biological sister of Tylee Ryan's parent, Lori. Where Tylee's mother is the defendant and where her father is deceased, neither of Tylee's parents are able to fulfill the role of the immediate family member. So Summer is designated as the representative of Tylee Ryan of the immediate family. So she is acting on behalf of Tylee Ryan's side. Colby Ryan meets it because he's the brother of Tylee and JJ, so he, of course, can go. Finally, for the record before it, Larry Woodcock does not meet the legal definition of immediate family member in relation to any of the victims listed by the state. The state has included Larry Woodcock on the list of witnesses expected to testify. As such, he is subject to the exclusionary rule. That means Larry Woodcock is precluded from observing trial testimony prior to the testimony he offers at trial. He may, however, observe all proceedings where testimony is not being offered, and upon conclusion of his testimony, he would be permitted to observe the remainder of the trial. The state has the means to order its testifying witnesses however it see fits. Should the state wish to call Larry Woodcock early in its case in chief, that is entirely the prerogative of the state. So the judge is saying Larry can be in the courtroom, just not when other people are testifying. And if the state calls Larry first, once he's done, he can stay in the courtroom. But legally, under Idaho law, he does not fit the definition because the judge is saying, who is he representing in the case?
Right. So he doesn't even qualify. This is all very confusing, but I wanted to highlight Nate because he went over all of that stuff really well. He did it fast, but I'm going to link the description to his Facebook page where you can go over to Facebook and read this entire document, and you could get confused yourself reading it. But I want to say happy Passover to my Jewish friends out there. Today and tomorrow is Passover. I actually started sundown yesterday, and happy Easter to everybody who celebrates Easter Sunday. I sent out some free memberships. Welcome to our members. It's my way of giving back and saying thank you to everybody who is paying channel members and Patreon supporters and people who subscribe. It's free to subscribe to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. But for those of you who pay for the memberships, Ed and I really appreciate it. For those of you who get your free 30-day memberships, we hope that you continue or consider keeping your membership or maybe downgrading to the lowest tier, which is only $2.99 a month. I try to make it affordable for everybody, and we do a lot of great exclusive content on the members only. Let me wrap this up with Nate because basically he really covered the whole meat and potatoes of what we were going to talking about there. And the ruling is heartbreaking because, Larry Woodcock, he is a loving grandfather who's been there fighting for JJ and Tylee all along from day one, from the beginning. They've been very outspoken on this thing, and my heart breaks for them. We always talk about the victims and their families, right? It's a shame, it's a sin that the law, sometimes works in the favor of the bad guy or bad girl. And for me, I think it sucks. It really sucks. So let me cue up this piece. I promised you we're going to do a timeline that leads up to the Lori Vallow trial. But again, all we can do is pray for the Woodcocks, and also don't forget, Charles Vallow was also killed, and his surviving brother Jerry and his wife Melanie Vallow, they're wonderful people, and they're also victims here. The victims that were plowed over by Lori Daybell Vallow, Shallow Vallow, Chad Daybell, her brother Alex Cox. He was like the Terminator. They told him, go kill somebody. He went and killed somebody. And then he wound up himself getting killed once they exhumed the body of Tammy Daybell. And I don't think he just got a heart attack just because the body was exhumed. I think he got a heart attack because somebody poisoned him and killed him so he wouldn't be able to talk. His job was done, and he was yet another victim of Lori and Chad. These are evil killing machines, and we have to hope and pray that they're innocent until proven guilty, but we have to hope and pray that they never get out to see the light of day, because they are monsters, evil, sick monsters. And when you have someone who's radicalized in any kind of religion or any type of belief, those are some of the most dangerous people. And we're going to hear a little bit more about them. They're people who are radicalized cannot make sense of things. They get tunnel vision, and they kill anybody that comes in their way. and comes through their path. So let's play this. This is going to be the timeline from the beginning to the end. So if you are not up to date on this thing, on this case, and this is going to go over just how many people were murdered in the wake of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow.
This point, Lori Vallow's trial is scheduled to start tomorrow morning. She's the Rexburg mom accused of killing two of her own children, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan. She's also charged with conspiracy in the killing of the late wife of her current husband, Chad Daybell. Both face charges for the three deaths, but it's Lori who will face a judge and jury starting tomorrow. News Channel 7's Shira Matsuzawa has a timeline now of how we got to here.
Spanning from Idaho to Arizona to Hawaii, this case has captivated the nation since the disappearance of 7-year-old JJ Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, who vanished in September of 2019. Their mother, Lori Daybell, never reported them missing. But 4 months later, Lori and her husband Chad Daybell were tracked down in Hawaii in January of 2020.
Here, hotel staff members tell me that Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell actually checked out of their hotel rooms here just about 90 minutes ago.
Chad, where are Lori's kids?
Mae Eaton with East Idaho News was in Kauai this weekend right after police served Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell with 2 search warrants. One for this black Ford Explorer the couple was driving around the island, and another for their Kauai townhome where the couple's been living.
They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii?
But the mystery surrounding the kids' disappearance started long before Lori and Chad were found in Hawaii.
Look at that,
Lori
evil.
married Chad in Hawaii on November 5th. He's her 5th husband. But before that, she was married to Charles Vallow, and they lived in Arizona. In January of 2019, body camera footage from Arizona police shows Charles pleading to officers for Lori to get help and claiming she was trying to kill him.
Murdered today or tomorrow?
But officers determined she was fine. About 5 months later, on July 11th, Lori's brother, Alex Cox, shot and killed Charles in what Alex claimed was self-defense. Body camera footage shows police responding to the home.
And is he hurt or is he alive?
Yeah, there's blood. He's not moving.
Lori showed up a short time later.
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
Like, hi neighbor, sorry.
The very next month, Lori, Tylee, JJ, Alex, and Lori's niece Melanie moved to Rexburg.
September 8th, 2019, the last time 17-year-old Tylee Ryan is seen. She was on a trip to Yellowstone with her mother, Lori Vallow, and uncle, Alex Cox. A cellular analysis survey team, or CAST, with the FBI analyzed data from Alex's phone. According to the probable cause affidavit, the GPS data points used by CAST are highly accurate, placing a device within 6 meters of its location. On September 9th, 1 day after the Yellowstone trip, that GPS data puts Alex's phone at Lori's Rexburg apartment between 2:42 a.m. and 3:37 a.m. This is the only time he was at Lori's between midnight and 6 a.m., according to the PCA. A few hours later, 9:21 a.m. until a little after 11 a.m., Alex's phone pings at Chad Daybell's property, specifically placing him behind the home near the barn. Just 14 minutes after Alex leaves, Chad sends a text to his then-wife, Tammy Daybell. The text reads, quote, "I've had an interesting morning. I felt I should burn all the limb debris by the fire pit before it got too soaked by the coming storms. While I did so, I spotted a big raccoon along the fence. I hurried and got my gun, and he was still walking along. I got close enough. One shot did the trick. He's now in our pet cemetery. Fun times."
Eerie.
Police state this was suspicious because raccoons are nocturnal. Neighbors of Chad's also reported to police frequent bonfires at Chad's house, which was out of the norm. Fast forward a few weeks to September 22nd, the last time JJ Vallow was seen. Police interviewed Melanie Gibb and her boyfriend David Warwick, who were visiting Lori that weekend. They told police Lori said JJ had turned into a zombie. The next morning, September 23rd, between 8 and 9 a.m., Warwick didn't see JJ and asked where he was. Lori stated he was acting out, so, quote, Alex had come and taken JJ. GPS data once again puts Alex on Chad's property that day from 9:55 a.m. until 10:12 a.m., peeing near the pond.
At the time, Chad was married to Tammy, and they also lived in Rexburg. By this point, Chad and Lori were believed to have some type of relationship. Court documents show they met in 2018 at a religious conference in Utah. Then, on October 19th of 2019, Tammy Daybell died in her sleep. Court records show 10 days before her death, Tammy called 911 and reported a masked man shot at her in her driveway. Court documents later indicate Lori's brother tried to shoot and kill Tammy. Initially, a coroner ruled Tammy died of natural causes, but investigators later reopened the case and exhumed her body on December 11th. 1 day later, Lori's brother Alex died suddenly of natural causes. 2 weeks later,
Shocking.
Lori and Chad got married in Hawaii. Then 4 months later, in February of 2021,
Utah County Sheriff's Office has received the autopsy report on Tammy Daybell's body from the Utah Medical Examiner, but they are not releasing it to the public just yet.
that report has still not been released. But Lori and Chad are charged in connection with conspiring to kill Tammy. On November 26th, 1 month after Tammy's death, Kay and Larry Woodcock, JJ's grandparents, ordered a welfare check for JJ. Police say Lori told them JJ was with her friend Melanie Gibb in Arizona. Melanie told East Idaho News Chad called her that day and said when police call, don't pick up the phone.
He says, yeah, the police are over at Lori's house checking on JJ. And I'm like, JJ's not with Kay? No. My heart dropped deeper.
Rexburg police returned to Lori's home the next day, this time with a search warrant. But Lori was gone. That's when Chad and Lori, newly married, are found in Hawaii. Police in Hawaii served a court order saying Lori had 5 days to physically produce the kids. The newlyweds ignored that deadline.
She's got an end game in her head, and although this is not a game, but obviously she thinks it is, for you to shun an order from a court telling you what you need to do.
Police arrested Lori in Hawaii on February 20th, 2020. She was charged with child desertion, obstructing an officer, contempt of court, and solicitation to commit a crime.
And you know that you have been charged in the state of Idaho with a number of charges.
At this point, both her kids are still missing. Lori was extradited from Hawaii to Idaho on March 5th. KTVB was the only media outlet to get video of Lori landing at the Boise airport. From there, she was flown to Rexburg.
Welcome back, Lori. Where are your kids? Tell us where your kids are.
KTVB was there as she made her first court appearance in Idaho on March 6th.
All right. It's amazing how she just smirks and smiles. And did any of you guys take notice of Chad when they were being followed by Nate Eaton in Hawaii? That smiling smirk that he gave back to the camera, Chad Daybell, just equally as evil as this defendant that we see before us, Lori Vallow. These are, again, evil killing machines. These are murderers, monsters.
Her son, Colby Ryan, was also there, along with Kay and Larry Woodcock.
Where are Tyler and JJ? Where are the kids? Where are the kids?
Fast forward to June of 2020, 9 months after JJ and Tylee disappeared. Investigators searched Chad Daybell's Idaho property and found human remains. That's when police arrested him.
That is the helicopter that I was referring to that Nate Eaton rented out to fly over that property. So kudos to East Idaho News.
Investigators and detectives have recovered what's believed to be human remains.
That's the C word.
I don't know why that happened.
Then in May of 2021,
A Fremont County grand jury indicted the couple on 2 charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. And another first in this case, with Daybell charged with first-degree murder of his late wife, Tammy Daybell.
Members of the grand jury deliberated and determined there is probable cause to believe the Daybells willfully and knowingly conspired to commit several crimes that led to the death of 3 innocent people.
A few weeks later, on June 8th, Lori was deemed not fit to stand trial. The case was paused for nearly a year, but on June 24th, another grand jury in Arizona indicted Lori on conspiracy to commit murder charges in the death of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow. A trial for those charges won't happen until the conclusion of the trial in Ada County.
Thank you. Please be seated.
In April of 2022, Lori is found competent for trial. She was then formally arraigned on murder charges and pled not guilty. 1 month later, prosecutors said they would pursue the death penalty against Lori. But then, in October of 2022, Judge Stephen Boyce issued a ruling to suspend the trial until Lori's competency could be determined. 1 month later, the judge ruled she was competent to stand trial once again. Then in March of 2023, Judge Boyce ruled Lori and Chad's cases would be severed, meaning they will now be tried separately. Which brings us to today, and Lori's trial in Ada County.
Trial proceedings do start tomorrow morning at the Ada County Court.
All right, so I thought that was a very good overview. And again, to the folks who are sending, and thank you for becoming a new member, Cynthia Grahan, thank you for becoming a channel member. For those of you who are sending information from another channel about Larry Woodcock being allowed to be put in the court, that's great news, but I don't like to report on things until I see the actual court ruling. So until I get verification of that, I don't like to put that stuff in my chat, even though it could possibly be true, and I hope and pray that it is true. I just like to vet and verify all the things that are put in my chat. So again, that was me deleting those things because I will say it, but I just don't want it spammed through my chat, especially if, in fact, it is just, it's not something that came down from the court. I hope you guys understand that. I thought that was a good piece because it actually showed you how much carnage the team of Lori Daybell, Vallow, and Chad Daybell and her brother, Alex, he was like the henchman for them. He basically, carried out some of these murders, and he tried to murder Tammy Daybell by shooting at her in her driveway. So it's really sick. When you look at these kind of things, you think to yourself, or you say to yourself, how could this happen? How is this possible? But it is. This is what is current and what is going on. I want to play. Okay, you guys were all putting Lauren from her and her husband have a true crime podcast. So she's on with Nate Eaton, talking about the courtroom and jury selection. So I wanted to play a little bit of this because this is giving you guys an idea of how they're shutting out the media. They're shutting out public viewing. They have them off into a side room while they're doing jury selection. So they're trying to protect these potential jurors. And right now they're close to the 42 that they're requiring. They, I believe, have 35 potential jury candidates. And I think 35, they want to get 42 and then they'll shut it down. But they brought in a total of like 1,800 or actually sent out 1,800 jury duty forms. And I think they have 35 qualified. They need 12 and 6, 12 jurors to sit on the jury, and then 6 alternates, they call them, in case somebody has a family issue or a problem and they have to bow out of the trial. So they need a total of 18. And so they're going to talk about this in this little piece. So it's Banfield. I kind of cringe sometimes when I play her stuff, but I love Brian Entin, so I want to play this for you guys.
It's a frustrating process, not just for us, the viewers, who don't have a live feed to this trial, but for you as well, who is literally there in the courthouse, not allowed to be in the courtroom, you're shuffled off with the rest of the press into an overflow room where there's a media feed that sometimes works. So take me to day 2.
Yeah, I mean, it is frustrating. Of course, we came all the way here. We want to be in the courtroom covering every little second, like with other trials that we go to. But we are in this media room. Everybody is, the media, the public. They're not allowed in the courtroom during jury selection. There is the video feed, but they take the feed away. They cut it off when they start asking the jurors more personal questions. And then they also cut it off sort of sporadically at other times. Today, again, they started talking about scheduling and other issues with the case. The judge decided to cut the feed. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't even know if they went to lunch. The media and the public sort of just left in the dark.
So the last we talked, I think you said that they had a pool of 1,800 people, which in the Boise area, I mean, it's a lot of people, but I guess it's not that many. Certainly Boise's not a tiny town. How are they doing in terms of weeding them out? Like how many people are getting bounced right away? How many people sound like they could be great jurors?
Yeah, so today it seemed like they bounced more people. And you mentioned the questions were interesting. A lot of it's about bias. They're asking a lot of people if they've seen the story in the media. They keep asking about the Netflix series. Have you seen the Netflix series? Did you see a preview of the Netflix series? Have you seen the reporter chasing Lori Vallow in Hawaii? Those questions come up over and over again. And then other really interesting questions. They asked the jurors a couple times, in a bank robbery, would you blame the getaway driver as much as the actual robber? They asked several jurors, if a kid steals a cookie from a cookie jar, but you didn't see it, but you see all the crumbs around the jar, can you still say that kid did it? So obviously, try to figure out reasonable doubt here, trying to feel out the way these potential jurors think.
Sure, direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, and then also I can hear what you're saying. That's the whole conspiracy. Are you, because this is she's in a conspiracy, the prosecutors allege, and so they want to know if the jurors can handle that and believe.
Everybody sort of has together. I actually want to bring in Lauren Matthias, a host of Hidden True Crime podcast. We all kind of sit next to each other. I mean, it is sort of a weird situation, sort of being kept in this room.
Yeah, it is. And they have like cookies and coffee for us.
They do have coffee.
People are mingling and we're all trying to watch and listen. And it's,
by the way, her and her husband do an unbelievable job on their YouTube channel. I'm going to link their YouTube channel down below in the description, but they cover these cases and they give you all the different aspects of it. She's out there going into the courtrooms. She's on the different various news channels. And her husband, I believe, is like a forensic psychologist or a psychologist, and they do a bang up job. And she's on 2 times a day doing lives on this case. So if you want to stay up to date on the shallow Lori Vallow trial, you should go on over there, and I'll link it in the description. The really awesome people, her and her husband, they seem like wonderful and fantastic people. Good to see everybody joining in the chat. Scott, Miss Donna Marie, Debbie Hucker, Debbie Galloway. Please do me a favor if you can right now. Just give this video while we're all here a thumbs up. I'd greatly appreciate that. If you could just hit that thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing to Crime Time with DutyRon.
It's hard. Some people have better views than others. Some people are hearing things, others don't. It's kind of a team effort, but it is difficult.
And they're strict, Ashley. I told you earlier. I mean, no cameras allowed in the courthouse, no phone cameras. There was someone who took like a selfie or something earlier and like got in trouble from a deputy. So they're very, very strict.
Can I ask you guys, is anybody else other than me blowing a gasket at this like extraordinarily secretive process? Again, I understand what the judge is trying to do, not create a circus, but that's, there is a very heavy hand here, and it really feels like this is secret justice. So the rest of the press as angry as I am?
It's frustrating, and it's just different. I mean, for example, we wanted to get Lori Vallow coming out of court. You can't see her, but the car leaving. So our photographer, Luis, sets up and they say, absolutely not. Can't have the camera here. Can't be positioned, even though it's outside. the rules are strict.
It's very, very strict, and the rules are strict. And even at one point, she was silhouetted. Lori Vallow was silhouetted sort of this morning on her camera angle. It's already a far away shot. And so I know the one reporter asked if we could get a curtain behind so that she wasn't shadowed. And then they said, well, there are no curtains. You know, I'm like, well, can we fix this problem?
Yeah, it almost seems like they're trying to protect Lori Vallow from the media, from them taking pictures. And what Brian Entin just alluded to there is that it was an outside shot and it's a public place. When you're in public, you should be able to either video or take pictures. It's not like they're in the courtroom. They wanted to get a shot of her leaving the courthouse. And I think that was reasonable. You know, good to see you, Vet Girl. Hello to the Pranzos, Richella and Pete. Thank you for joining. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, where do you draw the line? Like, let them take their pictures of this piece of shit. Well, who cares? Why do you have to protect her when she's outside of the courthouse? I mean, am I being too over the top with this? Let me know in the comments what you think about what I'm saying right here. But like, if she's being like how we saw convict murder, right? We saw convict murder being brought out of the courthouse, and it was a whole hoopla of guards bringing him out, but everybody was able to take pictures and photo him. Same thing with Shitty Kohlberger. When he was being extradited from Pennsylvania, Monroe County, flown back into Latah County, there was video and pictures of him coming out of the Monroe County courthouse in Pennsylvania. And there was video on the tarmac. Those of you who were watching that, put a 1 in the chat. Let me know if you saw that whole all night long tracking the plane of Brian Kohlberger, but yet scumbag Lori Vallow, shallow demon, you have to get a bad camera angle of her in the court, and then you have to double down and protect her on her way out. I think it's bullshit. I think it's hogwash. I think it's, hold on. I could do this because screw Judge Boyce. Well, I don't mean screw him. I could say, what can I say?
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
You know, let the media take pictures of her outside. Let them snap away. I think she should be exposed. It's just me.
I mean, it's just on and on. Lori,
the rules are strict.
It's very, very strict, and the rules are strict. And even at one point, she was silhouetted. Lori Vallow was silhouetted sort of this morning on her camera angle. It's already a far away shot. And so I know the one reporter asked if we could get a curtain behind so that she wasn't shadowed. And then they said, well, there are no curtains. You know, I'm like, well, can we fix this problem? I mean, it's just on and on. Yeah. And you don't know if the audio, as you say, is just turning off, or if they're, you know, on accident and you need to report it, or if, oh no, they're just turning it off once again so we can't hear anything.
Yeah, and I like to remind people that, you know, boo-hoo the press, but we are the press. Like the people are the press. We're the eyes and ears for the people. And so they're shutting out the people. They're not just shutting out the press, they're shutting out the people. And the people are paying this tax bill to the tune of millions. So listen, Brian Entin, Lauren Matthias, thank you so much for struggling through it and keeping up, keeping up.
So that was like good reporting by Brian, because you know, he gave you guys a little bit of an insight into some of the frustrations that they're facing, right? And again, keeping the press from taking pictures and so forth, I think that's ridiculous. Hey, I have so much stuff here, but I don't have enough time. Here's a Law and Crime Network piece, and it's the grandparents. But you know, like, I'm hoping and praying that the judge does put out this ruling that Larry can be in the courtroom, and from what I understand, it sounds like he's given in to letting him. But again, that whole law issue of if he's going to testify, that you can't rescind that, you can't change that. That's part of the rules and regulations. So maybe they're going to put him on first to testify. But let's take a listen to this, because I'm not sure, this isn't too dated. When is this? From 21 hours ago. So let's hear what Kay and Larry had to say 21 hours ago.
I had never met Brandon up to that point. I'd heard about him a bunch, but I had never met him. And so I had reached out. Anyway, Brandon called me right a day or so after his attempted murder, and we started talking, and we were able to put a few things together, and that's when he was the one that mentioned that was it him? Anyway, that he didn't know where they were, but that anyway, it was few weeks after that, because Brandon and I were talking often, and we had gotten together and hired retained Rich Robertson, and then it was after that, whenever we found out Tammy was dead, Brandon actually Googled Chad one day and found out that Tammy's name came up, her obituary came up. Yeah. Brandon saw that, and Brandon called his detective in Mesa or wherever he was, and said, "Hey, this lady is dead, and this is the guy that Lori's having an affair with." And Brandon talked to his detective and put it all together, which at that point I think is when they started talking to Rexburg and all that. We did not know about that. When did we find out they got married? No, we did know about it because our detective called us and said that that they found out that Chad was saying that he got him a hot loaded wife now, and
smoking hot.
No, Charles called her smoking.
Yeah. Smoking hot.
He just called her a hot loaded wife.
Yeah.
And we were like, wait,
machine.
what? And then saying they were empty nesters, and we started getting that kind of feedback, and it was like, oh my God. I mean, at that point, the FBI was involved for JJ, and then in November is when we found out that Tylee was also missing. And because up at that point, we didn't know. I didn't know she had gone
the
to.
only thing we knew that.
So basically, they're just going over all of the carnage that they were experiencing and seeing. And again, as I said, Tammy Daybell was obviously, murdered, and Chad Daybell did his best because he was a gravedigger, worked at a funeral home, and was well respected for whatever reason in his community. The coroner came, or didn't even come, just let the funeral home actually pick her up direct from what my memory serves me correct. And they had a funeral and interned her, and thank God she wasn't cremated. I think I talked strongly about if she would have been cremated, he may have gotten away with, the two of them might have gotten away with killing her. And I'm so thankful that, because of maybe religious beliefs or whatever the case may be, that they did not cremate Tammy Daybell, because if that, in fact, is what they did, they would have gotten away with it. So just so many people along the way. And I don't know if there's any more. There may be more people along the way of this guy, Chad Daybell. I never read any of his books, but I heard his books were real extreme. So again, this is the coverage. The trial is going to start on Monday, April 10th. And our trial for Trezell and Jacqueline West, those are the two who stand accused of killing Sincere and Classic, Orrin and Orson West in Bakersfield, California. That trial resumes on Monday, April 10th. That's this Monday coming up, the day after Easter Sunday. But they're saying that opening arguments are going to be commencing in this trial. And don't forget, Judge Boyce severed the two cases. They severed Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. So they're both going to be tried separately. And I understand that Chad Daybell's attorney has been in the courtroom. And to me, I just that sickens me. But when we saw Michael Valva and Angela Polina, the defense for Angela Polina, because she went second, her defense was in the courtroom as well. So again, the attorney for Chad Daybell, not a great. I mean, he seems like a tightened up attorney, but I don't like him one bit. I don't like his whole demeanor, but who could like anybody that's defending these two monsters? But he's got a job to do, and he's doing his job. But we will see how this all goes down. I'll be following this closely. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. This has been an hour of Lori Vallow. We're just going over. The jury selection is almost complete. They have another day to complete this, and hopefully maybe today they might complete it. I'm hoping that Larry Woodcock is going to be allowed in the courtroom. I understand that that's in the works or is happening, and the wheels are starting to turn in his favor. And I hope and pray for a successful prosecution here. And Lori Daybell of Vallow never sees the light of day again. The death penalty is off the table, but if she's locked up for the rest of her sad, pitiful life, I hope she rots inside her cage if convicted for the rest of her natural-born life. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. And as I always like to say to everybody who has watched, thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the kind comments. Thank you for the comments in the comment section, the thumbs up, all of the engagement that you guys bring us. Thank you to the moderators who work tirelessly to keep the chat clean and classy. Thank you, mods. You guys are some of the best out there. And I also want to say thank you to all of the people behind this successful prosecution. So on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I wish you guys all a wonderful Thursday afternoon. And to all of my Jewish friends, happy Passover and happy Easter Sunday. Stand by for a message from Kara, Oscar, and Popeye. That's the acronym for COP. Kara, Oscar, and Popeye. Only one person was able to figure that out over thousands of videos that I've done. Of course, I've only had the exit on there for maybe about 400 or 500 videos, but about 400 or so videos, Kara, Popeye, and Oscar. Kara, Oscar, and Popeye, let me correct that, is the acronym standing for COP, me and Ed Wallace. Thank you, guys.